The Shattering War is usually blamed on the demigods, on their pride, their greed, their hunger for power. But by the time they raise their banners, the war has already been decided. The Elden Ring is shattered, the throne is empty, and the world they're fighting over has been deliberately left without a future. This isn't a story about a war that went wrong. It's a story about a god who stopped intervening, about a family left alone with divine power and no guidance, tearing itself apart inside an order that was already condemned. What followed looks like chaos, but chaos can be useful, especially when a world needs to be tested, exhausted, and finally replaced. Before we part, the Golden Order grows through faith, and this archive is still young. If you'd like to walk alongside it, one quiet gesture is enough. You have my thanks. Sincerely. The shattering matters because nothing ever replaces it. Wars usually end when someone wins, or when the cost becomes too high to continue. This one does neither. It simply freezes the world in place. The demigods claim fragments of authority, but none of them inherit meaning. Power circulates without purpose, and the lands between rot under a conflict that never resolves. For the people caught beneath it, this isn't legend, it's erosion. Kingdoms hollow out. Faith turns defensive. Memory replaces progress. Even victory becomes suspect, because ruling a broken order only preserves what already failed. The war doesn't just destroy bodies, it traps history itself. And then, the tarnished are called back, not to stop the war, but to survive it, to struggle inside a system that no longer pretends to be whole. Whatever the shattering truly is, its consequences are designed to last, and someone expected the world to endure them. The world that breaks during the shattering was not always unstable. For a long time, it worked exactly as intended. The Golden Order promised coherence. Life had rules. Death had boundaries. History moved forward because it was allowed to end. At the center of that system stood a god who understood control, not as force, but as structure. Destined death was removed not out of mercy, but to make the world predictable. Nothing truly ended anymore. Victory became permanent. Authority could be inherited instead of challenged. Even exile became a tool, not a punishment. Those who no longer served the order were cast out, not destroyed, preserved for later use. But systems like this don't fail loudly at first. They hollow. When death is delayed, consequence follows strange paths. When power is stabilized too long, it begins to rot. The Golden Order looked eternal, but it relied on constant intervention to remain so. And eventually, that intervention stopped. What happens next only looks sudden if you ignore everything that made it inevitable. The night that breaks everything does not look like a declaration of war. It looks precise, quiet, surgical, a handful of assassins, a single target. Godwin's death is not meant to topple the world, but it exposes how fragile that world has become. His body lives on, but his soul is erased, and for the first time, the Golden Order produces something it cannot contain. What follows is the moment everyone remembers. The Elden Ring is shattered, not stolen, not corrupted, broken by the very God meant to embody it. And after that, there is no guidance, no explanation, no correction. Only fragments of authority scattered across the realm like inheritance without instruction. The demigods move quickly, not because they are ready, but because nothing is stopping them. Great runes are claimed, banners rise, old alliances calcify into battle lines. Each child interprets legitimacy differently, and none of them can agree on what the world is supposed to become. The war that follows is not fueled by vision, it's fueled by absence. Everyone is fighting over a system that no longer has a voice, trying to rule a future that was never defined for them. And in that confusion, the shattering truly begins. Up to this point, the shattering can still be read as catastrophe, as grief spiraling outward. But that reading starts to strain when you widen the lens. because this god had already been preparing the world for failure long before the ring was broken. Exile was never abandonment, it was delay. The tarnished were stripped of grace and sent away, not erased, not condemned, but preserved beyond the reach of the Golden Order. Destined, death was removed, then selectively reintroduced in a form that bypassed the very laws meant to control it. Even silence itself becomes an action. After the ring is shattered, there is no attempt to repair it. No successor is named. No command is given to end the fighting. Instead, the world is allowed to grind itself down. Melina later confirms that the return of the Tarnished was not an accident. Struggle was expected. Suffering was anticipated. The Shattering War does not interrupt a plan. It fulfills a condition. Only through exhaustion does the old order reveal that it cannot be salvaged. This is where tragedy and design overlap. A mother may grieve, a ruler may hesitate. But a god who controls life, death, and exile understands exactly what prolonged conflict produces. It produces survivors. And survivors are the only ones capable of ending a system built to last forever. The evidence of that exhaustion isn't hidden in dialogue. It's written into bodies and landscapes. Great runes do not elevate their bearers cleanly. They distort them. Power, meant to restore order, instead exaggerates obsession, locking each demigod deeper into a single idea of legitimacy. None of them grow. They calcify. The battlefields tell the same story. Sieges never resolve. Corpses are left where they fell. Weapons remain embedded in stone as if the world itself refused to move on. This is not what an active war looks like. It's what happens when conflict is allowed to stall indefinitely. The shattering doesn't spread momentum. It drains it. And that drain feels intentional. None of the demigods are truly winning this war. That's the part that's easy to miss when their legends grow larger than their failures. Each of them becomes a monument to imbalance rather than a path forward. Loyalty preserves a broken law. Defiance curdles into nihilism. Strength arrests fate itself. Even rebellion collapses inward, feeding on what it once opposed. The shattering looks like a contest for a throne, but it behaves like a filtration system. Every claimant is tested, and every one of them fails in a different way. Not because they lack power, but because power alone cannot replace an order that was designed to outlive consequence. The longer the war drags on, the clearer it becomes that no demigod can end it without becoming another symptom of the same decay. This is where the conflict stops being about inheritance and starts being about endurance. The war doesn't ask who deserves to rule. It asks who can survive a world that refuses to resolve itself. And in that sense, the shattering stops being a mistake and starts looking like a crucible. Godwin is where the shattering stops being abstract. His death is not just the spark, it's the wound that never closes. Killed in soul but not in body, he becomes something the Golden Order was never built to process. A corpse that lives, a death that spreads. Roots carrying corruption through the very foundations of the Erd Tree. This is the cost of manipulating death without accepting its consequences. The war above ground freezes, but beneath it, something keeps growing. Deathroot creeps outward, unchecked, indifferent to banners or bloodlines. The system meant to prevent decay has instead distributed it. And still, there is no intervention, no correction. The Erd Tree stands, radiant and hollow, while the world beneath it decomposes. If the Shattering War is a test, Godwin is its clearest result. Not a lesson learned, but a truth revealed. The old order cannot contain what it has created. It can only pretend that it still rules. Shadow of the Erd Tree reframes the silence that defines the shattering, not as neglect, but as method. The land of shadow exists because consequences were sealed away instead of resolved. Suffering was displaced, not erased. The same pattern repeats everywhere power becomes inconvenient. Exile, containment, delay. The world is not healed. It is managed. That context changes how the Shattering War reads in hindsight. This wasn't a failure to act. It was a refusal to conclude. By allowing conflict to persist without resolution, the old order ensured that nothing new could rise organically. Everything had to be tested until it broke or endured. This is not the aftermath of indecision. It is the result of design, traced back to Marika's choice to step away rather than correct what she had set in motion. And that is where the Tarnished enter. Not as heroes sent to save the world, but as survivors recalled after it had been stripped of answers. The war does not end because someone claims the throne. It ends because someone is willing to confront a system that was never meant to finish collapsing on its own. So was the shattering a family tragedy or a master plan? The truth is more uncomfortable than either answer alone. It is a tragedy engineered to function, a plan that required real grief, real loss, and real ruin to succeed. When Marika shattered the order and refused to restore it, the world did not fall apart by accident. It was allowed to unravel until only one question remained. What kind of future can be built from something that was never meant to be repaired?